Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome, everyone, to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. Negative thinking. This is it's a tragic pattern, and it's one that so many of us fall prey to. We do it because we've been programmed to do it. Very, very sadly, but very, very insidiously. We have been raised in a culture. Two pieces. One is our basic culture of education and discipline, which is a system based on punishments rather than rewards. The kids who do well and behave are ignored. The kids who are the problems are the ones who get all of the attention. So what we hear constantly is, you're stupid, you're bad, you're this, you're that, and we internalize it. The other piece of it is the culture. The media and politics and everything in the world is rooted upon and founded upon convincing us that we are lacking something in our lives that they are going to fulfill. Now it's just called marketing. If you already are set, how am I going to sell you something? If you're already satisfied, you're not a very good customer. Especially if what I'm selling is not something you need. People who sell apples are probably never going to go out of business. But if what I'm selling are clothes or cars or vacation packages or beauty products or any of these things, I need you to feel that there is something lacking in you which my product is going to solve. So either you are too dark or you're too fair. Either your hair is too straight or your hair is too curly. Either you're too fat or you're too thin, or you're wearing last year's model of jeans. This is how advertising works. The example that I always give, my favorite example on this is, if you look at a commercial for soap, well, what does soap do? Soap cleans us. We all need it. It's a great product. Nothing wrong with soap. But an honest advertisement for soap would say things like, Dove cleans so many more parts per million of bacteria than Zest. Lathering up with Dove for 5 seconds is the equivalent of lathering up with Zest for 30 seconds in terms of how many bacteria you've washed off. Commercials never do that. What do soap commercials look like? They are beautiful people singing in the shower as they lather up in the morning and their bathroom is all steamy and their husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend is also in the bathroom singing, and then they go out and their child has miraculously gotten himself up and had his breakfast and done his homework, and then the family walks out the door hand in hand, and all you see is just a little thing that says Dove or zest, right? Nobody said anything about cleanliness. Nobody said anything about bacteria. We're selling happiness. Car commercials. Either it's freedom, right? You're driving off into the horizon. Will anyone here feel stuck in their jobs? Anyone here feel stuck in a situation? God, freedom looks so good. If I just had a Camry, I too could drive off into the sunset. Leave behind everything. We're not selling airbags and brakes and, seat comfort. We're selling freedom. We're selling romance. The guy with the car has got the right lady. You want to sell an SUV? Kids in the back seat are singing together. Well, when your kids want to strangle each other in the back seat, the subliminal message is you've got the wrong model of car. If you just buy this one, your kids too will sing in the back seat. So I share this because it's funny, but it's epidemic. Wherever you look, we are being told in every magazine, every TV show, every movie, every commercial, every ad on a website, that we need something to be full. They are selling scarcity. 24 hours left of this sale. 2 left at this price. Get them now or they'll be gone tomorrow. You're growing old. Better get the right car, have the right family, take the right vacation, drive your Camry off into the sunset while you still can. It's all about scarcity. If they tell us, oh, don't worry, we've got 1 billion in stock, they'll probably, price will go down probably in a few weeks. It's not going to sell. 24-hour sale, this week only, get it now. It's all about scarcity. And so what happens is we have been indoctrinated and brainwashed to believe that A, we're not enough. There's something wrong with us, something lacking. B, these people have it. And C, you're running out of time. Now that sounds very superficial. And even if we don't internalize the message about the car or the soap, we do internalize the message that we're not enough. We do internalize the message that there is something wrong with us. And so we take that out in our lives. And the way to deal with the negative thoughts, first of all, is to make a commitment in your life to compassion. And to make sure that that commitment includes you. To make a commitment to loving kindness. And to make sure that you are included in that. And number 3, to identify the voices. As the voice comes in, ask yourself, look at it. Who are you? Are you a commercial? Are you my 5th grade teacher? Are you my mother who meant really well when you said to me, why can't you be like your older sister? I mean, parents mean well. They don't mean to mess us up forever. It just it happens. And again, it's not their fault. Look at any 25-year-old. They're kids. That's how old our parents were when they gave us these messages that we're carrying for decades. They were doing the best they could. But they were 23, 24, 25. They were babies. Figuring it out as they went along. They didn't mean how it came out. But we internalize it. You're the stupid one. You're the messy one. You're the ugly one. You're the whatever. And the last piece is we also internalize the message from our parents, from our school, from our society, that your worth is based on what you achieve. People who are successful, who are rich, who are the top, these are the ones that society glorifies. And the message is your value, your worth is inextricably linked with how much money you make, how high you have climbed on the career ladder, whether you're the president or CEO versus the mail clerk. Not just your salary is dependent, but your entire self-worth. And so we internalize that, and even if we don't go a traditional path, and even if we're not climbing a ladder to be a corporate VP or CEO, maybe if we could dream so high, we've still internalized the message that you're only as worthy as what you achieve. And today, sadly, living a normal life has become sort of substandard. Today it's all about what are you going to do that's never been done before? What are you going to do that sets you apart? It's a disease. I mean, really, it's actually a very, very serious disease afflicting pretty much everyone between the ages of about 10 and 50, but primarily the younger. It's a recent disease. Look at your parents. Look at your grandparents. I mean, did anybody's grandmother want to, do something that no one had ever done before? No, she wanted to raise a family and, cook a beautiful casserole that would feed her family and maybe have a garden. This was enough. Do some charity. Invite the neighbors over for dinner. This is what life was about. Today, you've got to do it all. You got to have a career. You've got to have a family. Simultaneously. Take care of your health. Squeeze your own organic juice. Get to the gym. Meditate. Do yoga. And stay peaceful and loving and happy while you do it all. I mean, really, the standards have become just insane for what counts as a legitimate life. And so no wonder we're all telling ourselves over and over again, you're not good enough. We've created a standard that none of us can possibly achieve. But again, like what I was saying in the earlier question, is when you look at it, it tends to dissipate. If we can look at it and say, oh my God, I can't believe I've gotten sucked into that model. I can't believe I've been brainwashed. Wow, yeah, you're right. My grandma was a really happy lady. Like, deeply fulfilled. Not that that's what I want to do with my life, but that there's nothing wrong with that. I actually have a lot to learn. A lot to learn from the elder generations about life. And so if we can just look in and recognize we are enough, it's not about what you do. It's about who you are. Let that be your gauge. Not what you do, but who you are. And if who you are is compassionate and loving and kind, it's a fantastic achievement. Just remember to extend it to yourself.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, And with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. How can we, as American yogis, raise consciousness in our country? Yeah, needed very much, not only in America, but all over the world. How can we raise consciousness? Well, the only way to do it is to raise your own consciousness. Sadly, there's no magic wand that we can take and wave it over people's heads and raise their consciousness. The gurus can do that. That's why we travel thousands and thousands of miles to come and sit at the feet of the guru. But when we don't have that power, what can the rest of us do? Well, we raise our own consciousness. And what happens when we do that is that we literally, energetically, become different. And what that does is it literally and energetically changes the people around us. We all know that we receive people's energy. This is where people will say things like, I just got a really bad feeling around that person. Or, God, I got such an amazing feeling around that person. People talk about good vibes and bad vibes. It's sort of a new agey way of referring to this. But it's really just energy. There's now incredible science that is showing what the sages and saints and rishis have said for thousands of years, which is what you think, you emanate. You actually send it off into the world. So we literally, what we are thinking doesn't just stay in our brains. There's now incredible science showing that there are machines that can give you a brain scan without touching your head. Now, this is amazing when you think about it. We've all seen, either in real life or on TV or in the movies, images of what brain scans look like. They hook up a machine to your head, and then on a screen, on a monitor, on a machine, you get a reading. They now have a machine that can do that inches away from your head. The implications of this are huge. What it means is that literally what we are thinking, what we are feeling, is going out into the world in a strong and exact way, such that a machine, not your loved one, not your spouse or your kids or your friends who say, are you sure nothing's wrong? You sure you're not sad? But a machine that doesn't even know you, can pick up your brainwaves. So we should not underestimate the power of raising our own consciousness. one of the tragic mistakes that so many of us make is to take on what feels like a really noble mission to change other people. And typically we like to start with our family members, we like to start with our friends. And what ends up happening is, even though we've gone into it, from a beautiful place in our heart, we've had an experience. We've had an opening, we've had an awakening, we've had an awareness. We want to share it with them. We want them to also have it. The tragedy is that you cannot give that experience to another person. And typically when they are your family members, what they take that as is you trying to change them. And most of the time it actually ends up leading more to conflict rather than our loved ones saying, wow, thank you so much for shining light on all the ways that I'm stuck. Thank you so much for shining light on all the ways that I'm living in ignorance. Thank you so much for showing me where that was really just my ego. Very few people react like that. Most of the time what we get is, shut up. Don't tell me what to do. You are the problem. I was not stressed until you walked into the room. I'm very calm. If you don't tell me to calm down, I'm very calm. If you have a problem with how I am, fix it. So we get all sorts of varieties of what we'll call non-effective responses. Hasn't helped us, hasn't helped the person. But what we don't recognize is the incredible power of just being in our truth. It's very powerful. And slowly, slowly, because we do emanate that, it impacts people. It changes them. People around us feel differently. We may not always get the credit for it. That's okay. We have to give up our attachment to them knowing that it was us who changed them. Because they may just think that they started feeling differently. They may attribute it to something else. And we have to allow that to be okay. But there's one more piece, which is, in addition to raising our own consciousness, we also are global citizens. And when things are going on in our communities, in our countries, in our world, that we know are not right, we actually have a responsibility to respond. That responsibility is because we're a member of a global family. If a member of your family were in trouble, whether they became a drug addict or an alcoholic and you had to organize, a family intervention, whether they became very sick and required medical treatment, maybe the family had to make financial sacrifices to get it, whatever. Break a leg, have to be moved from the upstairs bedroom to the downstairs bedroom, so we all readjust. Okay. We respond. We don't just ignore it and pretend it's not happening and just meditate in our own room. Yes, we keep meditating in our room as well. It makes us much better able to deal with that, which is going on in the family. But we also act. And that is true in our world. We have to respond. Each of us in different ways. There's no cookie cutter response. Thou shalt act in this way. Thou shalt spend 15 minutes every day doing this or that. Each of us has different abilities. We have different skills. We have different connections. We have different opportunities. We have different areas of influence. But being spiritual does not mean I cut myself off from the world. Spirituality is not an either or. It's an and. It's a yes and yes. The beautiful metaphor that's used so frequently in India is the metaphor of the lotus flower. It sits in the muck, in the dirt, but it stays white and beautiful and miraculously muck-free. And that's really the model. Is it's not about, oh my God, you're mucking me, I have to go away. But how can I stay here? Stay with my roots in the muck, literally, and yet give my fragrance, give my beauty, give my own nutrients back into this muck. Whether it's through photosynthesis, whatever I'm doing, I'm actually able to channel assistance, nourishment, nourishing back into the muck. But I have no attachment that it's going to stop being muck. I just know that this is my role. And it's a really beautiful metaphor to think about. It's not I get drowned. It's not I stop being white. It's not I lose my fragrance. But it's this beautiful, just visual to hold. And for most of us, it's a pendulum swing. For most of us, we go from being fully in the muck to being a few feet above the muck. Roots not quite grounded. And then we swing back to reground ourselves. Then we find ourselves a little bit mucky. Then we shift back, and it becomes kind of a pendulum swing, but you slowly, slowly, slowly find ourselves getting closer to that center where we're able to actually do both. And so we maintain our consciousness and we respond. Because if we turn our backs, really what that's saying is the people who are making the decisions in our country are the non-meditators, are the non-yogis. If all the yogis say, well, forget it, I don't want to have anything to do with politics, it's not a spiritual thing. Politics and spirituality, politics and yoga, politics and meditation don't mix. Then what we've done is we've just created a world in which we say, well, everybody who has the power to therefore make a decision about our world by definition has to be a non-meditator, non-yogi, non-spiritual person, which is a really scary thought. But we have to begin with ourselves and realize that if we say, well, I'm a spiritual person, I'm a yogi, I'm a meditator, I'm only going to work on my consciousness, then we're setting up a model that says those sitting in power will be those who are not working on their consciousness. And our world needs people who are expanding their consciousness to also make decisions for the world. So we do both.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is Conscious Living for Your Soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Like Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation. How can I help someone who doesn't want to be helped? You cannot on any level. If someone doesn't want to be helped, we cannot help them. But the question is actually deeper than that, because what it implies is that we somehow know what's best for others. And that's a very difficult situation for us to be in, because the truth is we don't know what's best for others. We only know what's best for ourselves. We may think we know what's best for others. Especially as parents, as spouses, as friends, we can look at our children, we can look at our spouses, we look at our friends, and we think, I know what's best for them, and I'm going to help them. The problem is that implies that our world vision is the right world vision, and that ultimately the goal of life is the same for everyone. That if we're looking at how someone's living and we're saying they're not living right, I need to help them live right. What that means is that my perspective of what's right is right for everyone, which of course it isn't. How many of you here have ever had a situation in your life where you pray and you pray and you pray that something should happen, something you really want to happen, it should happen? It does happen. And then after it happens, whether it's a day later, a week later, or a year later, you think, oh my God, what was I praying for? Oh my God, I should have known better. This is because we don't know. We don't even know for ourselves, let alone for others. And so when we think that someone else needs our help, usually if you look really deeply at it, what you realize it is not the other person's problem, but our problem. Being around that person is difficult for us. And so what we think is that person needs to change, I will help them change. But really what it is I need to change. I need to stop having such a problem with the one in front of me. In psychology, one of the most basic and fundamental rules of psychology is that which bothers you the most about other people, 99 times out of 100 is because it's what you need to work on. So every time that you have an instinct that says, I need to help this person, if that person has not asked you for help, now it's different if someone comes to you and says, please help me. But remember that our question was, how do I help someone who doesn't want to be helped? Now, if they haven't asked me to be helped, if they don't want to be helped, they haven't asked to be helped. If someone isn't ready to take help, but I'm convinced they need it, the first question I need to ask myself is it really them who needs the help? Or is it just that how they are being is difficult for me to handle? And it's a lot easier for us to look out and say, this person needs to change, than to look in and say, I need to be more accepting. To look out and say, this person needs to do something different, rather than to look in and say, I need to have more compassion. But in most cases, it's only our own inner acceptance and our own inner compassion that can actually help the situation. You cannot force help on someone. All you do is you get resentment. It pushes them farther away. So what we do is we look within and we say, how can I have acceptance of this situation? Now remember, acceptance doesn't mean I think it's great. It doesn't mean I love it. It doesn't mean I would choose it. It just means I recognize that I am not the power to change this situation. So how can I have acceptance? And two, how can I have compassion? For the person who's acting and living in a way that I think is wrong, and for myself who is so troubled by it that I'm trying to figure out how to help them even though they don't want to be helped. And what happens is that acceptance and compassion creates space. And in that space, people are able to breathe. And when they're able to breathe, in many cases they're able to look at themselves and realize, I do need help. Whether it's something as obvious as alcoholism or a drug addiction, or something more subtle, whether it's ego, whether it's jealousy, whether it's how someone's living, neglecting their spiritual practice or their family or their health to just get ahead. Whatever it is that we see that seems wrong about how someone's living, we have to first create the space for them to breathe into the awareness that they may need to change.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
When I broke my foot, for leaving me alone when I wanted to be alone.
And now, as a grown-up, I'm thankful for being able to take care of you, my dear mom, for taking you to your therapies, for understanding that sometimes you simply want to be alone.
Roles change without us noticing. That's why AARP gives you the information to provide even better care for your loved one. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, and thanks for coming back and joining us for more of inspiration and transformation. Chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita describes how to be a perfect yogi acting without the pairs of opposites, likes and dislikes, acting without any desires? How do you have the desire for self-realization without acting on the desire? The Bhagavad Gita did not say, thou shalt not act upon thy desires. What it said is, thou shalt not be attached to the fruits of the results of your actions. I may desire to have apples. In my desire to have apples, I plant apple seeds that hopefully tomorrow will sprout into apple trees and I will have apples. Wonderful. That's what God gave us brains for. I desire apples. How can I have apples? Well, I plant apple seeds. If I take care of the seeds, I'll have a tree. If I take care of the tree, I will have apples. However, if the seed doesn't sprout, if some animal comes and eats it up, if the seed sprouts and I have a tree, but the tree does not give me apples, or gives me apples, but the apples are rotten or sour, or the birds and the worms eat the apples before I get to them, I still don't have apples. And if I was attached to the fruit, literally in this case, the apples, I'm going to be frustrated. That frustration is the impediment to my spiritual growth. So God did not say, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita did not say, thou shalt not plant seeds. Thou shalt not water them. No. What he said was, plant the seeds, water them, shine the sun on them. But don't be attached to how long it takes them to give you fruit, to what type of fruit, to how much fruit. If you get your apples, great. If you don't get your apples, no problem. That's the point. And the reason for that is we don't have any control over it. I have control over the seeds I plant. I have no control over what happens after that. I have no way to make that seed sprout. Sure, I can follow all the rules of the right soil and the right water and the right, sun. But I don't know what makes a seed sprout. I don't have the seed sprouting mantra or magic wand. Sprout. There's an intelligence in that seed that makes it sprout. How do you make it happen? Who knows? The most brilliant scientists in the world, knowing everything, cannot create a seed that will sprout. Cannot create a leaf, cannot create a mosquito. They could draw you diagrams of exactly the molecular structure of the hydrogen and the oxygen and the nitrogen and the carbon, how they bind, but they cannot create it. Give them a petri dish, give them all the nitrogen, all the hydrogen, all the oxygen, all the carbon, they still cannot make life. We don't have control over it. All we have control over is our actions. And so what Krishna's teaching is not thou shalt not act. In fact, he's teaching the exact opposite. You must act. You must act in alignment with your dharma. But you must not be attached to the fruits of that. So when you talk about a desire for self-realization, I meditate. Okay, well, it's good to have a desire for self-realization. It's what makes me meditate instead of go out for cheeseburgers. So I meditate. But now, look what happens. If I'm meditating to meditate in that moment. Seed has been planted. I've sat down. I've crossed my legs. I'm chanting my mantra. The lights are off. I've turned off my phone. I'm planting the seed. Then I find my mind wanders. Oh my God, this is ridiculous. I'm a horrible meditator. I'm never going to get self-realization. That guru said if I just chant the mantra, I'll get enlightened. He's stupid. I need a new guru. You see what happens? That's because I was attached to the fruits. It's like when they say, the watched pot will never boil. It's sort of that on a much deeper spiritual level. If I'm attached to what's going to happen from my actions, even if what I'm looking for is as noble and pure and spiritual as enlightenment, if what I've got is a desire for enlightenment, then I've created and I'm living in this constant experience of separation. There's me over here wanting enlightenment, which is over there. And every moment I'm still separate. I'm watching myself. Are you enlightened yet? Are you enlightened yet? Well, it's the very act of this separation that keeps me from being enlightened. It's this very act of living in my judging mind that keeps me from being enlightened. And so what I have to do is plant the seed. I sit, I meditate. And I have faith. All my job is to do that meditation. Plant that seed, water it, with the full faith that God knows what He's doing, just like He knows how to make that seed sprout, which I really have no idea how to do. It's all right, God knows. The seed has an intelligence in itself. My soul has an intelligence in and of itself. There's a knowing. An awareness. This is what consciousness is. Consciousness is conscious. Doesn't need me to figure it out. Doesn't need me to be judging it or rating it on a scale of 1 to 10. That just keeps me separate from my consciousness. Then there's me and my consciousness. So I'm never going to be enlightened. Enlightenment is the merging. Yoga means union. As long as I'm separate from my meditation, from my enlightenment, from my consciousness, I'll never experience it. I have to be there. I have to be with it in order to be there. You can't be the watcher of your own enlightenment. At some point, it's like you can't merge into real love if you're watching it. You merge into that state. That's the oneness. That's the real union. And yes, I would be remiss if I don't mention that at the absolute highest level, yes, you can be conscious of your own enlightenment. But it comes not from the mind. It comes from a place of such consciousness, such full awakening, that it's actually easier for us not even to think about that because we confuse our mind with that place. And so for the moment, it's actually easier and simpler to operate simply thinking about merging into the enlightenment, merging into the soul, becoming one with that, one with our consciousness. And let the rest just happen later. It is our overly thinking mind that keeps us from experiencing. the more we think about something, the farther we are from it. You know, it's like as your eyesight starts to go and you have to hold things a little bit farther to be able to see them, right? In order to be able to read it. A friend told me, you know you need reading glasses when your arms are too short. So in order to be able to see it, we have to just hold it, you know, a little farther and farther and farther. Well, that's all right if what we're doing is reading a book, or a letter, or a note, or a menu, or whatever it is we're reading, a newspaper. But if what we're doing is connecting with our soul, our consciousness, you don't want to hold it at an arm's length. You don't want to be thinking about it. The more I think about it, the farther I'm holding it away. Let me just examine that a little better. If it could just go back a little further. The very act of thinking so much about it is keeping it farther away. Don't try to name it. Don't try to understand it. Don't try to figure out how you're going to weave it into your book. That's the problem. How am I going to tell this to people? How am I going to explain it? Don't worry about that. Just let it happen. It's much more important. Because when it happens, then you really have something to share with the world. If you try to name it as you go along, you miss it. Because as it's happening, it's not semantic. You cannot name it as it's happening. I mean, can you imagine falling into the arms of your loved one and saying, is that your bicep or your tricep that's squeezing me so tightly? Right? I mean, even if you happen to be a doctor, even if you happen to be an anatomy specialist, right? I mean, you'd be missing something in the moment, right? If you were trying to figure out, God, is that her trapezius muscle or is that her bicep? Or, you know, what? Something is squeezing me. Let me figure out exactly what that is. Doesn't matter. What's happening is you're being hugged, you're being held. Whether it's the, bicep or the tricep or the trapezius muscle, who cares? You'll figure that all out later. You'll look at a diagram later on, you'll figure it out. At the moment, just be there. Otherwise you miss it. This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on OMTimes Radio.